It's unimaginable what you've been through. There's so many what-ifs. There's so many what might-have-beens. Did you get any sort of sense of relief or closure or justice at the sentencing on Friday?
Well, first of all, I would just quickly like to say thank you to British Transport Police, because they've been with us from the beginning right through to the sentencing. So they were amazing. But yes, the sentence was what we had hoped for. But during the trial, we were very disturbed to find out that, and I'm not going to use his name ever. His name will never pass my lips. So I'm going to refer to him as the murderer, because that's what he is. So when we found out that the murderer had previous convictions and that in 2010 he had stabbed somebody in the neck twice and in the shoulder, and he was charged with GBH for that offence, and he served, I believe, 4.5 years. Now, for that to my mind, if you're going to stab somebody in the neck, that should be attempted murder. So for that, he shouldn't have been released from that point of view. And also to find out as well that the day before, 24 hours before my brother was murdered, the murderer was seen by a psychiatric expert who then deemed the murderer not to be a threat to himself or anybody else. 24 hours later, he got on board a train in the middle of the day with a knife and he stabbed my brother 18 times over a petty argument that he started. So, yes, there will never be closure.
So do you feel that he was a risk for a long time?
Absolutely.
And shouldn't have been out?
Absolutely. Just looking at his previous history, he wasn't taking his prescribed medication. He was self-medicating with strong cannabis. He was under a psychiatric care, which, as far as I'm concerned, the British justice system and that psychiatrist that deemed him as no threat have my brother's blood on their hands. And we are absolutely devastated that that was revealed in the court. To find that out was an absolute shock. It was like my brother being murdered all over again because it should have been avoided.
It must have been devastating, the whole experience, and I'm sure you and the family are still desperately trying to come to terms with it. Just tell us a little bit about Lee and what he was like as a brother and as a dad.
So I really want to make this point. Excuse me, my brother was really funny and he was very intelligent and he cared, and a really, really loving husband. He lived for his family. He didn't go out drinking, he wasn't involved in drugs, so this to happen to my brother was shocking. He didn't take drugs, didn't sell drugs, and for this to happen to him was an absolute shock.
It sounds like the sort of person that would have stood up for somebody if they felt like they were being bullied or being intimidated in any way, which is clearly what happened on this sort of situation when Darren Pencille came onto the train and he said something to your brother and he wasn't having it. He wasn't going to let somebody be rude to him in front of his son.
That's right. My brother couldn't abide bullies, OK? But he was very brave as well, and that's what cost him his life. He couldn't tolerate bullies, and that person, that murderer, was a bully. So, yeah, he couldn't tolerate that.
How is your nephew, his son, doing? Because, of course, he was there and witnessed what no son should ever have to witness.
Yeah, he's doing OK. He's actually been quite brave, because during the argument, he was too scared to look at the murderer because of his aggressiveness. So he never actually saw the murderer's face. And if you remember from the CCTV, the murderer had a hat on and sunglasses. So since we've had the verdict, which we're very pleased about, my nephew, Lee's son, has been able and has wanted to see a face of the man that stole his dad's life. And I think that's empowered him and showed that he's brave and he's got courage.
And he must need a huge amount of support from all of you.
Yeah, his school have been marvellous and his friends have been marvellous, and his mum, Lana, my sister-in-law, is a very strong lady, and I think that because of her son needing her, she's been able to cope with this.
How are you coping with the grief of all this? Because there are so many things that might have happened differently, aren't there?
Yeah.
Maybe in a different carriage, maybe on a different train. He wasn't even meant to get on the train, was he?
No. I do think about that, but at the end of the day, I always say to myself, the only person to blame is the person that carried the knife onto that train that day and started a petty argument and was prepared to kill for it when he realised how insignificant he was and that he wasn't going to win in a one-to-one fight if it came to that. So the only person in my mind to blame is the murderer.
You'd like to see much tougher sentencing for knife crime, wouldn't you?
Yes.
That's something you're going to campaign for.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you are all living through the devastation of a knife attack. What would you say to those people that are making these laws, that are sort of trying to construct a society whereby families can feel safe when they get onto a train?
Something needs to be done, and it needs to be done yesterday. We can't keep just putting this to the sideline and thinking that it's going to be OK. We're hearing about it all the time. You know, one of your colleagues has experienced it, you know, so before a long time passes, people are going to have somebody in their own family. It's going to affect everybody because it's becoming the norm now. Something needs to be done, and it needs to be done immediately.
Were you scared of... We all hear the knife crime statistics. Unfortunately, you're not the only family, are you, that's been affected, especially recently. But you were aware of it as much as you are now, or is it one of those things you'd never think is going to happen to you?
You're right, it was something that I never thought would ever happen to anyone I know or love. But I was very aware of it. You couldn't not be aware of it. I follow the news like most people, and I was very aware of it.
It's been really, really incredible to hear you speak so eloquently on behalf of your brother and the family as well, Kim. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
What will be your sort of memory, your lasting memory? I'm sure there'll be plenty of your brother who's there, but he's got such a lovely, warm face you can see in the picture behind you. What will be your sort of lasting memory of your brother and his influence on your life and your family's life and his son's life?
Well, sorry, that's made me a bit emotional.
Well, we can only, you know, give you our love and send it to all your family and wish you well with the grief that you're dealing with, and I'm sure it will not go away quickly.
No, undoubtedly. Kim, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thanks.